My philosophy is that once you deploy a media plan, it probably should change in some cases dramatically by the time you're done with the media campaign, because you see performance, you see what works, you see what doesn't, and you're testing aggressively. Hey everyone, we have a question on Reddit by user Matilda Kid. How to know effective budgets for various channels. Hi all. I've recently started a position at a corporate entity that basically is a mediator between clients and vendors. So think agency, except we outsource everything to third parties. This might be a weird question, but how does one learn to set effective budgets for various channels? We focus on CPMs, impressions for channels like social, email, over-the-top display, etc., etc. I am good at strategizing what channels a client should focus on, but not necessarily how much they should spend. So for example, if a client asks, in an ideal world, how much would you spend on social per month in respect to my business industry? Is this something that varies agency to agency? How have you professionals learned to do this? Experience? Any help would be greatly appreciated. Clarifications can be provided if I'm not sure I've worded this in the best way. So let's talk about this. There's a couple things. The first is that often customers will have an idea of how much they want to spend. So the exercise that we're about to go through is cool, but oftentimes it's like, yeah, you can spend $200,000 total, like just as a top line budget. You tell them that, they're like, oh, cool, our budget's $10,000. Like, even if you're a Fortune 500 company, the ambitions of any individual corporation or company, you will always have a larger overall audience that you can reach than budget to actually reach them, right? So there's always a lot more inventory available. When you look at industry or business vertical, I don't think look, I'm sure there's benchmarks, but there's so much variation in the marketplace. Like you could do so much. If you have $100,000, you can go so many different ways with $100,000 that it's not about the industry, in my opinion. It's about the business. What are your goals and KPIs? What do you need to do? And so how many people, how many humans exist in your audience? Or how many people do you need to take a certain set of actions in order to drive your business forward? So that's the question there. It's very unique to the customer. So I wouldn't look at industry or business. I would look at your goals, the situational analysis of your business, and then start making a decision from the top down. So from the top is, what's your budget? And again, the advertiser might know their budget, but it's often, and I understand it's often extremely helpful to make a decision when you have information coming back to you rather than making a decision out of the blue. So if I give you a number, and then it's much better for you to come back and say, oh, I was thinking this. Okay, you've done, even though it doesn't seem like you've done your job, you've done your job. So what's the math here? The math is actually relatively simple, and we got into the habit of just assuming we're gonna have to create a forecast. So we do this a lot for our clients. Here's how you start. How many people are in your audience? So let's say there's 1 million people that you want to reach. Okay, cool. There's 1 million people. So now, how many times do you want to reach them? 3 times a week, 7 times a week? And I'll stop here and I'll say that if you want to grow a business aggressively, or you're developing a new brand, or it's a new initiative and you want to scale rapidly, you're doing 7 or more impressions a week. If you're not going to be as aggressive, you're looking at about 3 impressions a week. And I'll also note that I haven't found any real good studies that justifies one way or the other. This part of it is more just what I hear from people who have been in the business longer than me in a variety of media. And we kind of generally agree 3 to 7 is the right number of impressions per week. If you're a corporation with lots of capabilities and studies, then you might have an idea of what your optimal impression per week is. But just remember, people are seeing thousands of ad impressions a day. Everywhere you go, there's an ad impression. So in order to break through, the creative has to be on point, and you've got to send a bunch of messages so that the user gets the message quite literally. So you have 1 million people, you want to reach them, let's see, 3 times a week. And how many impressions is that a month? So to calculate a month, you're thinking, okay, there's 4.35 weeks in a month, and I Googled that, and that's just, there's always like 1 or 2 extra days. So it's 4.35 weeks in a month. So you're doing 1 million impressions times a frequency of 3 per week times 4.35 weeks in a month. So that's 13,050,000 impressions. So doing the CPM calculation, that's 13,050 multiplied by whatever your CPM is for banners, for video, for over the top, for Facebook ads, for TikTok, for Snapchat, right? So the CPM that you're gonna be running it at, multiply that by 13,050, and that's how you do the math. So the idea here is you're gonna deliver an impression volume, you're gonna deliver a cost, and then the question is, how do you break it out by different channel? When do you turn on display? When do you turn on over the top? When do you turn on social, etc.? So this really, to me, has to do with the KPIs that the client is looking for, and the business situation, and their past performance, and just like tribal knowledge of how advertising works. I mean, look, over the top, you're not getting any clicks, and the media is very expensive. There's a time and place for that, right? It's like much more expensive than banners. So if you want people to take action on a website, you probably want something where people can click, so over the top isn't the right place. Social, Facebook is good for people 40 and over, as well as Instagram, but you can find all age groups on Facebook and Instagram. So, if you want to spend $500,000 a month on Facebook and your audience is small, then you might have challenges delivering $500,000 of media if your age group is very narrow, right? Or your targeting is very narrow. But if you want to spend $10,000 a month on Facebook, you probably have enough, there's more than enough impressions and scale to do that, right? So it depends on the budget. Banners are usually the least expensive, but the lowest overall click-through rate. But there's a time and place for banners. They work. You have the ability to deploy dynamic creative right? So the point is, when you've got to now identify the mix that's right for the client and the client's business situation. And then what we do is we propose, and we say, look, we think it's 50% banners, 40% Facebook, and 10% video. And this is knowing your client. Knowing your client is a lot like coaching, mentorship, therapy. What are their motivations? What do they value? I mean, they all will tell you that they value business metrics, but some people, some clients will say, I just need to spend the money. I've had clients like that where they get dinged or they don't get the bonus if the budget doesn't get spent. Okay, that's a motivation. I've had other clients who say, look, I just want the lowest overall CPM because that's my business philosophy. From the clients saying this, my business philosophy is the lower overall cost, even if performance might not be there, we can drive performance better with the lower overall cost. That's what I believe in. Okay, so we're definitely not doing over the top, right? So knowing and understanding what the client is asking for then makes you understand how you allocate that. The 13 million impressions that you've allocated, that helps you understand how and where to allocate them. And then you look at the numbers, because I'm a numbers person and media investment is a lot about numbers. Does the CPM does the effective CPM that you get on the media plan, does it actually look good? That's not even about performance at this point. It's is the framework set so that at least you're in the door and the client will feel comfortable with the media plan that you've developed, right? If you overweight Facebook because it's more expensive, even though it might perform better, they may say, no, we need to put more into banners because it's a lower overall CPM. Or a client is very sophisticated and wants something different. They want very narrow targeting and they want dynamic creative and they want a slew of things. Okay, cool. Now you've got to sell in the fact that that's going to be more expensive, and cost may not even ever come into play because they just trust your recommendation. So now you have a framework. You have 13 million impressions. You've divided it all up. That's the media strategy. That's the media plan that you're starting with. My philosophy is that once you deploy a media plan, it probably should change, in some cases dramatically, by the time you're done with the media campaign, because you see performance, you see what works, you see what doesn't, and you're testing aggressively. You're testing the platform, you're testing the channel, you're testing the creative, you're testing the media, like you're testing the messages, you're testing everything. And then the data tells you where to go, where not to go, where to optimize out of, where to optimize into. So I think that answers your question, how to know the effective budgets. It really just comes down to what your client needs and doing right by your client.